everyone. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. Welcome all of you. Good to see your faces. If you would, let's stand and have a pledge, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As most of you are aware, we have had a bit of a tragedy in our school district over the weekend, and our hearts and our prayers go out to that family. And if you would, let's have a moment of silence to remember Christopher. Item number 4 is the adoption of our agenda this evening. If I could get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda, please.
I'll make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
Okay. Any discussion, questions, comments? We'll be talking about this in a second. However, may I have a second for this motion?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 5 is a review and possible revision of our board procedures. It's been brought to my attention that, there's a couple of things that we could be doing, not that we're doing it wrong, but that we could be doing better, just to enhance everything that we do. So for your information in front of you, on the back page of your agenda item is just kind of a cheat sheet, if you will, for the Robert's Rules of Order. And then there's a lot more that, for those of you that received your packet before now, could go over, or you might have already gone over it. Mr. Shaw, anything to add to this?
No, and like you said, a lot of this is, it's really up to the board.
Because particularly in the years past, we did used to do the second thing. In fact, when I was first on, I made a second on the motion, and we said, oh, we're not doing that. So that is very standard procedure, so that I would suggest might be a good idea to implement.
Mike, any comments?
I would second that suggestion. I would also suggest that when a motion is on the table, that there be an open discussion or debate around the merits of that before a vote is asked for. I think that
In every case, in other words, when you second.
right, exactly, and so that's,
Yeah. And
the
you're
for
right,
and
that's-
against
yeah.
arguments are made at that point in time
Right.
before a vote, as opposed to a motion and then calling for a vote immediately.
Any comments?
No, I'm just trying to get it wrap my head around, so then it would be like discussion before the motion, then the motion, and then more discussion after the motion. Is that what you're saying?
You need a vote second.
Right.
Start the discussion.
So there's no discussion before the motion?
Yeah, you have to have the motion on the floor. Somebody has to move to make the motion and then a second. Then the discussion occurs. Before then, you call for any votes or amendments or anything like that.
So there aren't two discussion sessions?
No, it would still be one, except that, I think what Mike is saying, and this is fairly normal, Roberts, if the motion's not on the floor for discussion, you don't talk about it.
Right.
So you wait until you have a motion and a second, then it's on the floor for discussion, then you can call, then the chairman then can call for a vote at the close of the discussion.
Madam President, I think What you may be talking about, Penny, is there's gonna be a presentation by usually me or somebody else.
Right.
Is we are a small group. There's 5 of us. There's a very small group of people in this room. When you give a presentation, I don't want anyone on this panel to feel that they have to wait till a motion is made before they can ask you questions.
Right.
Right, yeah.
So there may be some clarifying questions, and then based on the discussion, or
The motion and the second is a debate.
Which is how many boards and committees that I'm on does it, larger boards and committees, for sure.
Right.
Any questions or comments? Okay, so we had discussion, which we weren't going to until we had a motion made. But I don't know that a motion could have been made without discussion on that one. So, with that being said, this is an action item to adopt whatever it is the board deems necessary. There's not an action requested on this agenda item, so whomever chooses to make the motion, please make it very clear what your proposal is.
Or the elements of the proposal.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that a motion be seconded, and that once it is seconded, then we will have before a vote, a request for debate or discussion. And if there isn't any, then of course we move right into the
Maybe all you need to do is say, after the presentation of the matter, then you ask for the motion and a second to make sure that we know that the staff presentation is heard after the agenda item is called and before a motion is made to put it on the floor.
Yeah, me too.
Is that clear? Okay. Sort of what John just said.
So what we might do, the way in which we might say it is, of course, a way in which to proceed on an actionable item is to give opportunity for seeking information, an informational phase, if you will, part of an item that's on the agenda, collecting information, a motion then, based on that, and then if there needs to, then a call for discussion, debate before the vote.
After the second.
Yeah. Right. Motion second, call for discussion, debate.
Is that clear for everyone before I ask for a second? Yeah. Karen, you got that?
I think
I was
that,
wondering.
polite,
Okay, is there a second on this one?
Then I will second the motion.
Any discussion on that? Any more comments? I think I still want to.
We all say all in favor, say aye.
Raise your hand. I'm not sure. We'll get there in a second after we have more discussion. I think I want to absolutely make sure you all know it is okay to ask questions anytime during the presentation.
Exactly.
Otherwise, this motion is going to take 20 minutes and we're going to forget what the motion was.
Right.
So you feel comfortable in what you're doing, and you know we will mess up at some point in time. It's okay. All right, we have a second on the floor. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 7A, Superintendent's Report. Mr. Foley.
I think there's 6 that you still need to do, yes. I don't know if we have any, but
Oh, I'm so used to having more people standing there. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the board for call or complaint? All right, so we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Thank you.
all right. So There is a superintendent's report on your, at your chair. So we're going to start with enrollment. There's actually two pages attached to this that have the enrollment. As of last Wednesday, the district is down just over 147 ADM, or the 100th day compared to last year's 100th day. Pretty much evenly between the schools. Our 100th day was March 2nd, and you might have seen kids dressing up at Territorial. They dressed up like seniors, we'll say, with gray hair and canes and everything else. It was kind of amusing to see those tiny little kids on their 100th day celebration. But it was also Read Across America Day, so there was celebrations of just reading, so that was exciting to see. But our 100th day was March 2nd, so now it's just a matter of taking those numbers and tweaking. It shouldn't change a whole lot. So that's kind of where we're at, and we still think that wise we should be okay. Questions on enrollment?
No, but that really was fun, and I bet that, and my little boy liked that. So I'm sure that, I would have liked to have seen all the kids dressed up, so it was cute.
There was a good picture of a young lady on Facebook that I think Matt took that was really good.
Cute. It was really cute.
Transwestern Pipeline, this is something that I think, Peter, that you might have been dealing with when you were on the board. So again, for those that don't know, Transwestern Pipeline is the natural gas pipeline that goes from actually along the 40 and tees off in Ash Fork and comes through our district and Humboldt and Mayer, and then also it impacts the county and the library district and CAFMA and all these districts and public entities that collect taxes from Transwestern for property tax. For several years, Transwestern has been fighting their assessment in court with the state. The Department of Revenue does the assessments for pipelines since it crosses multiple counties. It's called a centrally valued item, centrally assessed item. The Transwestern is saying that the state is giving it too high an assessment. They won every time in court. However, the state just keeps doing the same calculation that they've always been doing and losing in court. And what that means is we collect money from them, we collect too much money and end up having to give tax money back to them because they are being overtaxed by not just us, it's also Ash Fork and Seligman and all these, there's again, dozens of government entities that are collecting taxes from Transwestern. So in January, you all approved a resolution to request a recalculation of our state aid, so we should be getting some of that money back. And then the rest of that assessment that we have to pay to Transwestern gets passed on to the remaining taxpayers, and actually including Transwestern has to pay a little bit of that back. But whatever they get back and we don't get from the state goes to our taxpayers. So a couple things have happened. One is that there was the legislature passed a law saying that the Department of Revenue has to use the assessment that the court says. So if there's a court case and the Department of Revenue loses, they have to use the assessed evaluation that the court says is appropriate. So that means we no longer will have this happening in the future, which is a good thing. The second thing that may happen, and this hasn't happened yet, but there's also a bill still alive in the legislature that would pay districts back the money that they had to pay back to Transwestern, so that would not be passed on to our taxpayers. So that would be a good thing, so that it would not increase our tax rate for the district. We would get that money back from the state. And we're actually in a pretty good shape. We owe a lot of money, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but there's some districts like Ash Fork that owe a lot more than we do and are much smaller than we are. And it's really a hindrance to their tax rate and things like that. So this is actually a good thing. And I'm hoping I never have to talk about Transwestern again, to be honest, but because it's been several years that we've been dealing with this. Questions? Quick ASA update. ASA is Arizona School Administrators. I've volunteered to be the secretary treasurer for the superintendent's division. And I just want to let you know, it's not going to take hardly any time away from my superintendent's position. But just want to let you know that that's going to be out there. In your book, there is the brand new district spending report. Looks like this guy right here. And this gives you some information about how the district spends its money on an annual. This is for fiscal year 2020. Some of the information is from 2019, like graduation rate and poverty rate, but most of the information is from fiscal year 2020. Couple things I wanted to point out. Our classroom spending, which is the amount that goes into the classroom, including teacher salaries, aide salaries, also includes student support, things like nurses and counselors. Also includes instructional support, like our academic coaches and things like that. We are at 64.9%, which is up about 0.5% from last year. That's good, getting more money into the classroom. Our operational spending, which is our administration, plant operations, and food service, are comparable or below the spending of peer districts and state averages. So we're right where we need to be for those things that aren't classroom spending. This is disturbing. The average teacher salary for CVUSD teachers is almost 12% below the state average. And the district's per pupil spending is 8% below our peer average and 20% below the state average. The thing I want, and they took it off of here, which is unfortunate, and they haven't put it on the last couple of years because I'm looking at last year's. The peers that they choose for us, and this is, I think, similar across the state, you can see that there's a lot, when you look at the peer averages versus the district averages, kind of on the bottom left-hand corner, land and buildings, $33 versus our peers at $419. Equipment is pretty comparable. Interest, $26 versus $176. What that means is they have bonds. They've done bonds and overrides that are adding to their budget that we do not have. And that's something, not every district has bonds and overrides, but I would say most do. And so that's the one reason why our per pupil spending is so much lower than the state and peer averages.
And John, those can be both capital and operating bond issues.
Correct, it's M&O overrides,
Right.
or capital, and it could be capital bonds, and it could be, you know, it could be a K3 override, it could be a K12 override, it could be, you know, there's a variety of different ways of doing it, but it's basically voter approved increases to tax rate. And that increases school budgets and puts us at, in my mind, a disadvantage in some cases. So any questions on the district spending report? Those were kind of the highlights that I just wanted to show. But, you know, graduation rate, 92%. We're doing a great job with what we have. You know, our special ed population is, it says on here 15%, but right now, Cindy, what is our special ed?
Over 17.
Over 17% special ed right now. So we have some challenges, but we're doing a great job with what we have.
I have a question, Mr. Scholl. In the past, we've always compared what we pay our teachers with what teachers are being paid in the surrounding districts.
Uh-huh.
So we're still comparable to the surrounding districts?
Absolutely.
It's just that statewide we're low.
Correct.
And so are they then? Surrounding districts.
Correct. Correct. And actually, Prescott had an override. It wasn't a huge override, but it didn't pass in November. So they have $1 million that they're going to lose over the next couple of years if they don't try to pass it again, and they're going to have to make up those funds. Humboldt tried to do some, I think it was a bond and an override and lost both.
And it kind of makes sense that teachers down in the valley would make more money than the teachers up here because the cost of living down there is so much higher, typically, right?
And also, the larger districts have a bit of an economy of scale, and so they can offer higher wages also. In the big giant districts, they can.
Thank you.
You know, and down in the valley, when you've got a factory or you've got a lot of commercial properties that are taxed differently at a higher rate, and also, you know, you can pass a bond when it impacts commercial more and the individual taxpayer less. Where here we rely more on our residential tax rate or taxes, and so it impacts the individual more than some other more urban districts.
Penny, to your question, it's interesting to note, I think, that the Humboldt, Prescott, and Chino Valley, this region, is in the lowest 5% of funding in the state.
And you know, a lot of times when we lose particularly the young teachers, they end up leaving us and going a lot of times down to the valley.
I mean, I wish we could pay them that, but,
Yes.
So, John, our transportation costs, is it anything more than our geography spread?
I would say no.
Yeah.
You know, we are 400 square miles is the size of our district. And we have kids that have to travel like over a half hour just to get to the nearest bus stop. Our district almost goes all the way up to Seligman. There's a kind of a branch off to the northwest. We are a giant district, and we try to transport to the ends of the pavement, basically, where we can. But when we're going out Big Chino Road to where it's dirt, and you know, a lot of times that's no kids because then we start picking kids up on the way back. So there are a lot of miles where we don't have a whole lot of kids on the bus just because of, like you say, our geography.
Any other questions on that topic?
Excellent report.
yeah.
All right, and in your boxes, I see at least one of them in front of you, there is an audit report. And this is Rebecca's last audit. And we were very pleased with the number of findings. There are some, but it's pretty low compared to what it has been several years ago, and it's been a consistently good audit. Rebecca has applied to both the
GFOA,
the Government Finance Officers Association, and what's the other one?
the International ASBO, Association for School Business Officials, for both.
For the certification of the audit to make, you know, just a kind of two additional opinions on the strength of the audit. And it's something that we do annually just to kind of let people know, hey, other people are looking at this. It's a good audit. We're trying to be as financially transparent as we can by having other people take a look at it.
John?
Yes?
I only have really one question on it, and either John. If you look at the last page, page 8, the findings related to financial statement reported in accordance with governmental auditing standards, and it says no. Why aren't we, or didn't we?
I saw that, but I didn't really notice it. read the whole
I
thing.
can get back to you, Peter, if we can talk about
You guys
it.
know me better than not to think I'm radio.
Yeah, no, that's,
Tough. Yeah, no, I was curious because,
Uh-huh.
you know, there's no other technical findings, but, you know, normally you are in reliance with federal auditing standards, and the no just jumped out at me.
right.
Yeah, if you would just
Yep.
get back to me and
It's unusual.
see if there's anything we need to do, or what was the deficiency, what we didn't do,
Mhm.
that got that no rating.
Okay.
Thank you.
And lastly, staff members of the month. I want to thank Donna Webb of Jed's Sandwich Shop. She supports our staff members of the month. She goes around with us to take the pictures, gives them a little goodie bag, that kind of thing, and hugs when we can. So she's a very good supporter, very strong supporter of the district. So I want to acknowledge Donna. At Territorial, we had Patty Hust, which is our Teacher of the Month, and Kim Martinez, our Classified Member of the Month. At Del Rio, we had Janice Tiffany, our Teacher, and Tony Johnson, our Classified Member. At Heritage, we had Stacy Krug, our Teacher, and Nancy Shields was our Classified. At the high school, it was Mark Parmeter was our Teacher, Paul Perez, our Classified. And our district staff member of the month is Rosa Maria Karate, who's our ELL coordinator and our ELL teacher at the high school. So people doing fantastic things for the district and really supporting the district. So
Congratulations to all of them. Any other questions for Mr. Scholl with this report? Thank you. All right, moving on to agenda item 7B1, is our financial reports. Mr. Livingston, welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Scholl advised me to come forward and speak from the microphone here, so
we're short of mics, so
Okay.
yes.
that's why I'll be doing this. So maybe in the future I can just sit there and make eye
Oh,
contact.
good, we like that.
Good opportunity for me. So this was a real pleasure to put this report together. I'll just draw your attention to the first page here, the budget summary. And it's kind of a function of encumbrances. And it shows on the far right there the grant expenditures and encumbrances in our maintenance and operating fund. 3.75% of the $14.6 million fund is now free, like budget balance remaining there. And again, it's easy to see that salaries, once we open our doors in July, have to be encumbered. So if you have an X amount, you're paying someone, you encumber that. And we also have quite a few other things that are encumbered that will just continue to be closed and paid off and received. So as that percentage increases, this percent will continue to climb, and the budget available will continue to climb. So we just have to watch expenses with encumbrances. So any questions on that? That's really all I had. A couple more comments, but that is going to come higher as these encumbered fields and different things, salaries and so on. Just real quick there, I think you're familiar with this, the way we run that grant expenditures and encumbrances. If you go to the second page, there's a little note there. There's 6 funds there that have really late revenues. So we keep them in the black by transferring cash into those funds to pay those bills, because the county is really aware of the pressure on these funds, and we want to keep those in the black as we go along and transfer funds into them to pay expenses, and then bring those back out as their own revenues each year. And I think the district's in tremendous financial shape. I've looked at a few other districts in the state, and COVID has really had an impact, as you know, in lots of places. I'm sure it has here to a degree, but overall, in much better shape than some other districts. So, any questions for me on this report? I worked very closely with Rebecca Bartels to get this done accurately, and she was here last Thursday night for about 3.5 hours, pulling drawers and giving me a really nice tour of everything. So I think it's very accurate.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Any questions about this? All right. Well, while we have that, let's go ahead and go on to item 7B2, the Student Activity Fund. Any questions from the students?
No, good job.
Very
Excellent.
Welcome.
Yep.
Very excited to have them. It was a good transition.
Thank you.
Does anything stick out on the activity report that we should be aware of? Other than nothing's really happening?
Yeah, and the balances, it's really positive to see all the balances above
Yeah.
zero.
We like that too.
Let's get some activities.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item 8C, the SEAC update, Mr. Scholl.
This is actually going to be Larry Fulmer. He's the president of SEAC.
And it says Larry, I
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So I am the chairperson for the SEAC committee this year, and actually last year, before it got cut short with the pandemic. For those of you who don't know, the SEAC is a board policy, policy GBB, which involves the staff involvement in decision-making within the district. And we're really there to encourage staff involvement in various activities throughout the year, some of them reoccurring, some of them year to year. And it's a really good avenue of passing on information and getting feedback from the staff, especially this year with everything going on with COVID. A lot of questions this year. We kind of had to make a standing agenda item of the COVID update because it was just, it really just kind of took over most of our meetings with a lot of the questions and concerns. And this year was the first year we ran it virtually, so people meet, and then in person later on when some people were comfortable being face-to-face. So it's made up of varying people throughout the district. Some of our experienced teachers, some of our newer teachers make up the committee. We have an administrative position. We have positions that come from transportation, maintenance, food service, various support departments, district office. So we want to get involvement and feedback from all these locations. Those are the locations that will choose their member, have kind of a vote if it's not the one person that stands still and everybody stands back type vote. But so they choose, and it's that individual's responsibility to then go back to their group, their cohort, and communicate questions and concerns. Some areas are a little more active than others, but they are kind of their representative, if you will, of their concerns of whatever's going on. Typically, items that are covered every year, school calendars are covered. I know a few years ago, some of our certified staff came to us and wanted things to start a little earlier on that first week of school, so they had more time to get the students associated and kind of learn the standard procedures of the day, especially at the younger grade levels of here we're going to the lunch. And so we were able to, John was able to take that back to DLT, and we were able to make those modifications to the school calendar to meet those needs. Other items, we typically try to look at policies in the G section, which is pretty much the personnel section. And I know later tonight we have one of those for first reading for you to look at. Salaries are always looked in there, insurance, things of that nature. And really, you know, if time permits, we kind of cover a lot of other things that sometimes we scratch our heads, but if it's important to our staff, it's important to us, and we try to address those as best we can. And I know John does a very good job being transparent in that. He really puts out a lot of information to the staff, and we're not trying to hide it. We just get that out, and we do good. We meet typically every month, and I think we have a meeting after spring break, and one more in April, we'll wrap it up. So, do you have any questions about SEAC?
Well, Larry, so basically what you're saying, this is a communications group, the theme of it, both down and up?
To a degree, it can be. A lot of it is communication, but there are, you know, like I said, some staff members come and say, you know, we don't like this, or we do like that, or whatnot, and then we kind of address, you know, can we address a policy to change things? And a lot of our communication this year, we had stuff around leave, and how leave being used, and like later tonight, you'll see one on the leave bank. So we want to just kind of make sure that our policies are up to date, because things change or opinions change, and we really want to try to make things as useful as possible. And I think one of the themes this year when it came to leave was how do we keep people from misusing leave and try to offer changes to that. So, but we don't want to make too many changes too quickly, because then you don't know if things go good, what was the part that made it better, or on the flip side, if things get worse, that way we can kind of make one change at a time. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, very, very much so.
Okay.
You want to talk a little bit about the recognition also that came out? That was another
Yes,
thing that came out of that.
one of the other things that we're going to be doing this year, which didn't really necessarily revolve in policy, but at the end of every school year, we do a staff recognition meeting. And I know some of you have attended that. And we honor employees for years of service, the employees that are going to be retiring. In the past, we actually going to make 2 changes to that this year. The first change is that we typically would honor continuous years of service. So if somebody had worked for us for 7 years, taken some time off to maybe start a family or moved on, then came back, those years of service would then start over at 1. And the previous 7 would kind of be in the past. We didn't recognize that. We felt that it was better to make that change where we honored total years of service, because I know Mr. Fogel, you were a teacher of mine years ago, left, came back. So that way we're recognizing total years of service that you've given to Chino Valley School District, and that wouldn't have to start all over, because those awards that we hand out are based upon those years of service. The second change that we proposed that we're going to be doing is at 20 years, staff were awarded an apple, little thing, I don't know if you've seen those. But then at 25 years, it went back to a pin, 30 years, because we do every 5-year increments. We felt that if you get a nice little apple award at 20 years, that we need to increase that recognition award as opposed to heading back down. So we're going to be working with the ag department, who has a torch machine that can cut out kind of customizable metal images and really identify which staff members are going to be at those 25 and 30 year marks, and maybe talk with their peers and say, what is this person like, and then create them something that's unique to that individual to honor those years, because I think that needs to be celebrated more and not diminish that. So we're kind of between those, I know I'm working with Karen, we're revamping our list of staff members and where their years of service are at now that we're changing that, and then trying to identify who is eligible then for the 25 and 30-year awards moving forward, so we can honor them better. So that was another thing that came out of the SEAC group this year.
I have a question, yeah. Thank you. So is the SEAC responsible then for looking at and reviewing the exit interviews
No,
when a teacher leaves?
no, we don't.
Who does that, and is it
That'd
like
be
a
Shelley and I.
report that's done, or?
Shelley, our human resources coordinator, and I do that.
Yeah.
Okay, because we had a question on that.
Go ahead, Mike.
So Larry, how is participation determined, and could you comment on the level of participation?
I'd say the level of participation is high for the most part. I think this year we had a few vacant spots, I think people were a little concerned about participating. How they're chosen is, again, through their groups. So if you're a teacher who has, is it greater than 3 years, John?
It's 3 or more, and it's more than 3 or less than
More
3
than 3
years.
years.
T plus 3 or T minus 3.
Yeah, so that group of individuals would then nominate somebody, vote on that, and then they would become the member. There are, on a normal year, I would say there are rules about attendance. If you miss so many days or so many meetings in a row, you can be excused. But I'd say attendance is fairly high. If people aren't going to be there, they will inform us of their absentees. So they are nominated by their groups. So I represent the district office on the committee. I know Brandy represents administrators on the committee. Brian, who was last year, he's back there. He was on there. And then within that group, on the first meeting, we nominate the chairperson, the vice chairperson, and the secretary. And it's a year-long term. There's no limit, so if somebody wants to keep coming back year to year to year, they're more than welcome. Any other?
And so I presume classified, certified, and
Yes,
administration are all
yes.
represented in
Yes,
that?
one support from every building, from every school comes, and then again, there's a transportation, there's a maintenance, each department, major department, I'd say, has it. Food service at one point, when we did have food service in-house. So we do have a mix of everyone, so, which can be interesting when we get a very talkative bus driver on the committee. Sometimes you have to, they get very chatty. But we try to keep it positive, because it is very easy to dwell on the negative in the meetings. And so we start the meetings with a positive note. Introduce yourself and tell me something that's good about the site you're at. So we really want to drive the positive in this and not turn it into a complaining session. So, yep. And we keep it focused, and we keep meetings to about an hour as best as possible. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
No, great
Very
report.
informative, Larry.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. All right, item 8A through K is our consent agenda. This is an action item, so I would appreciate a motion.
Or make a motion to, with the approval of the consent agenda.
Is there any discussion on this consent
Oh, you need a
agenda?
second.
I'll second it.
I had second first.
We'll get there.
Second, Mike Vogel. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All right, all in favor? Thank you. Item 9A, personnel report. Mr. Schall?
There is a supplement, so please make sure you refer to the personnel report and the supplement. We have 2 new classified subs, 2 new certified, 10 resignations, 1 retirement, 2 certified changes, 5 classified changes, 5 coaches, 7 coaches rescinding stipends. I'll explain that in just a second, what that means. 3 extra duties and 13 timesheets, which I also want to talk about. The coaches rescinding stipends, these were offers of contracts for middle school athletics that never took place. And so we're actually rescinding those contracts just because the season never happened. The employees, the coaches didn't do anything wrong. This is nothing having to do with them. It's just a procedural thing to kind of clean things up a little bit. So, and also the 13 timesheets, which is on the supplement, that's exciting. At the high school this weekend, they had the PASS program, which was discussed by Heidi a little while ago. We had, I think, 20 out of the 28 show.
Yeah, we had 20 show, and a couple students had already taken advantage and because they had 1 class, so they took advantage and got that taken care of ahead of time. And then on Saturday, we had 7 kids. Some were from Friday that still had to finish, but it was very successful.
So again, this is these are timesheets for teachers to come in and help our seniors get caught up from the first semester to help them graduate. And I do also want to mention this is a higher rate than normal that we pay for teachers, and this will be something that we want to do for summer school. The reason for that is we want to ensure that we have teachers. We want to make sure that we get teachers to help our kids during this time. And so we want to offer them a little bit more. It's normally $25, and we're offering $35 an hour. But this is a way to ensure that we have the staff in place and the right staff in place to help our kids be successful. And so we're going to ask for the same rate at summer school as well. Okay. Other than that, it's fairly normal stuff. What's exciting is we're hiring teachers. We do have openings, but and I think I got a text from Julie that you just hired 2 this afternoon.
I did.
So, I know Brandy's hired some, and Carolyn has hired, and we're filling special ed positions, which is exciting. And I'm not going to talk about the high school because they are doing just fine, but we won't talk about them. They're doing great. So, I don't want to jinx us, but we're doing the what's going on with hiring right now is pretty encouraging.
Good question.
Yes, ma'am.
Not in the packet, 6 of the resignation, or I guess I should just say number 6. Is that, after reading the letter, is this going to be something that's a continued thing?
No. I don't know. You're talking on the regular sheet?
Yeah.
Or because there's the number 6 resignation on the supplement also.
Ms. Cox said it was taken care of.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Schall? This is an action item. We can have a motion, please, to approve tonight's personnel report and supplement.
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel report with the supplement.
And a second, please.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 9B, the 21-22 employee benefits. Mr. Schall.
All right. So this is our insurance. You are approving our insurance benefits for employees. And just so you know, as board members, you are eligible during open enrollment to get health insurance through the district. You just have to pay the whole amount. The district doesn't pay that. But you're welcome for you and your dependents opt into the district insurance if you choose to. I was actually kind of excited. Kairos's pool increase for all members of Kairos was 7%. Some districts, like ours, who may have had rather high loss ratios, so we actually paid less into Kairos than what our employees billed out because of whatever. And so we actually were upside down, so they added another % to ours to help cover that. I'm kind of excited about 8%. I was hoping that we were going to be below 10 was my goal, and I wouldn't have been surprised if it was over 10. So 8% is good. It's $132,000, about 85%, or about 95,000 is M&O. The rest are dependents insurance. So if somebody buys family insurance or spouse insurance, that's part of it, and also grants make up part of that. There's no change in the types of plans that we're offering. If you recall, there is a change in our network provider going from Blue Cross Blue Shield to United Healthcare. And also that's the people that process the claims are going from Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's not called United Healthcare, but it's a different, somebody associated with United Healthcare is going to be processing the claims. Our health savings accounts are going to stay the same. Our flexible spending accounts are moving from basic to health equity, which is perfect. And then there is, I'm trying to think, a little bit increase in health insurance, but that doesn't impact the district because health insurance is paid 100% by, and vision 100% by the employee. Okay. There's also a slight increase that we learned today in our life insurance that we offer employees. It's like $63 a month for employee health insurance coverage that's increasing. So what we're asking for tonight is approval of the 2021-2022 employee benefit plan.
Yes.
John, if I understand, the basic individual rate went from 575 to 621. That's the top line. I guess our basic plan was that 2500
HDHP 2500, the high deductible health plan is what that stands for, yeah.
And so that basic rate went up, but the district is picking up that increase?
Correct.
Yeah. So I did read that correctly then.
Correct.
So the staff will not see an increase in their insurance this year over last year?
There will be a free option for them that will remain the same.
Mm-hmm.
Then they can choose to make up the difference, which would be $224 to go to a copay plan.
Yeah, the higher plan.
The higher plan.
The basic plan, though,
is going to be no cost to the employees.
Super. That's
right.
What I wanted to hear you say, yes.
Right. And then also they have the option, they can go to a $5,000 deductible plan.
Right.
And the difference, which would be $138, gets put into a health savings account for them.
Right.
And then they can either supplement that, or they can actually use that money to help offset any family health insurance also, so they can make their family health insurance a little cheaper. Mm-hmm. But you're absolutely right. There is the 2500 plan currently is free to employees, and it will remain free to employees.
Super. Thank you.
Yep.
And the HSA, the health savings account, that
Yes.
can roll from year to year. It doesn't have to be used up at the end of the year.
Correct. There's a 30. I think this year it's like 3650 is the max, but they can roll over an unlimited amount.
And those are nice.
They can actually take some of it once they get $2,000. They can actually invest it in like mutual funds and things like that through the health savings account company. If they have the copay plan, they can do what's called a flexible spending account, which you can only roll over, I think, $500, and it's like only $2,500, I think, is the max that you can put into a flexible spending account.
This is an action item, so you have a motion, please.
Madam President, I'd like to move approval of item number 9B, our employee benefit plan.
A second, please.
I'll second.
Any discussion or extra questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 9C, job description amendment, Mr. Gold. Or,
Probably gonna say no.
Can you want to come up and talk? All right.
All right.
You got it, Chris.
All right.
I'll be there.
Okay, good. We're there. Okay. Hey, Mike.
You are not Mr. Schultz.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm glad you noticed that. I'm glad you noticed that. My name is Chris. I'm the transportation director. And I have been looking at changing the mechanic descriptions to include the CDL, to have them get their CDLs. Not the student certification, which is what you need to drive that bus with kids on it, but just to be able to drive the bus, period, to test drive, all those kind of things. I have several different reasons why I think this would be a great idea. It's important, I think, for the mechanics to see what the drivers have to go through. I think that might make the training process go smoother and go maybe a little bit better. They might have ways to increase it to make it become more successful. Our emergency rescues, it's cheaper than a tow truck. I mean, if that driver has a CDL in the middle of the night, leaving a bus there because you don't have a CDL to drive it back, then it just seems to me to be kind of silly if you could drive it back. If it's something that the mechanic can fix on site, which has happened before in the past, and we've had it towed back. So it's a savings for us. Sometimes when they need to test drive vehicles, not even the rescues, but the test driving, they have to find a driver. Well, then you've got to take two people. A lot of times they want to test drive it, a ways to make sure that they're, making sure they find any long-term, when it heats up problems or whatever. Paying two people to go to where one person can go just seems counterintuitive to me as well. That's all I got.
Sure. Quick question,
Yes.
if I could. I presume CDL means commercial driver's license.
Correct, I'm sorry,
From a
yes.
legal standpoint, should that be defined on this? Because I think the term we just use is CDL.
It's cheaper.
You hear what I'm saying?
Mechanic and mechanic supervisor, to me, that's a little self-explanatory, but.
We can take CDL and just spell it out.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm just thinking, so there's no question about
Right.
what it is when we're saying, using maybe a term of art to anybody but me, but.
I know my job descriptions for my employees, it says CDL. So I think it's an industry standard
It
It is.
yes.
term
But
that if you are
yeah.
applying for that job, you know what a CDL is.
Uh-huh, okay.
Personal opinion, but if we want to spell it out, that's also true. All right, well, this is an action item. Motion is to approve the job description.
Madam President, given my stupid question, I'll be happy
We'll forgive you.
to move the approval of agenda item 9C,
Fantastic. The approval of the job description.
the job
And-
description for our drivers and staff.
and do we have a second? Thank you, Mike. Any more questions, any other questions or comments for Ms. Walton?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, oh, wait, all in favor? Thank you. Item 10B, increase in Casa fees, and you are also not Julie Reynolds.
This is 10A that we need to do.
We're on 10A, so go ahead and say that. Lots of 10As there.
It's that time of year. Last year, we didn't increase our preschool tuition price. This is for our typically functioning preschoolers. Just with everything going on, we didn't get to it because typically I come in March. Preschool was shut down due to COVID. So now we're coming to ask for a $10 a month increase for next school year. I've already put the word out to all of my parents and nobody is balking at it. We're still considerably cheaper than the other districts and other places. So everybody seems really happy.
What type of wait list do you have for the preschool right now?
Well, we just started on the 25th. We just started enrollment for next year. We don't have a wait list yet currently, but we opened a 4th classroom. That's the reason why. So But it is filling up fast, so.
Any other questions?
And you want to increase it for what reason or reasons?
The minimum wage, last year, we didn't increase it when the minimum wage went up. So the preschool is, we try to do as much as we can self-funding. And so now that minimum wage is up to the 12, and we pay a little bit more than 12 an hour, that we can compensate that with tuition and cover those.
So you weren't able to do that this year?
We've scraped by, we got actually a grant this year that I was able to pick up the backfill of it, but I met with Rebecca prior to her leaving, and she said this year we've got to increase it to stay in the bus.
Brandy, do you feel that some of the being able to scrape by was due to COVID and not
Because we got that
having as
extra
much staff?
And we got that, well, we still had the staff, and we still had the pay staff, but we got that grant that we were able to pick up a substantial amount this year, due to COVID, so.
Right, I mean, if you price out daycare and stuff like that, this is very reasonable. And especially with the minimum wage law that has increased, this is a necessity to keep this going. So I will make a motion to approve the increase, the preschool tuition for the 21-22 school year.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's now do 10B. Miss Julie, please.
Yeah, same thing, due to wages going up and everything, we barely made it by, and we're just asking to increase the Casa wage, or Casa price to 155 instead of the 130.
Did we do an increase last year?
No, it's been like a year ago, yeah, about 2 years, so.
And I think to Andy's point, when you look at the cost over 20 days, that's less than $8 a day
Yeah,
Yes.
for after-school care, which is,
yeah,
I think, pretty affordable.
definitely. And to know where that your kids are at the school,
Yeah.
there's nothing like that. It's really, and to be honest with you, what it also boils down to is why we have to go up is because of the minimum wage increase. So that's really the only reason why we're going up, so. Again, I'll make a motion
Well,
to
I have a
approve the
question.
increase
I
of
have a
cost
question.
fees. Oh, you do?
Yes, it is. Thank you. So you're saying that you're increasing it by 15 a month, it's 130 right now?
Yes,
So that increase, if it goes to 155, is actually $25, right?
yes.
Okay.
And our parents are on board as well. We let them know that we're gonna need PC. We didn't know how much, and then once board meeting, I will let them know what.
Do you think you'll get much feedback
Yes.
for the increasing? I
You
mean,
know-
or negative feedback?
No, I already have parents signing up that are willing to pay that, because they know their kids are on campus. We're right there, and they just come and get them, and they're very comfortable with us.
All right, well, so we go.
All right, make approval, I'm going to approve the increase in the cost of fees.
Okay, motion on the floor, a second, please. Thank you. All in favor, or wait, discussion, questions?
Good.
All right, discussion, questions before we move on to approval? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 11A, our COVID-19 instructional model.
I think I jinxed myself. When I wrote this, we had no positive cases of students or staff on campus. I found out today we had one student at Heritage that tested positive for COVID. And we've had, I think the last I heard was 10 students. Is it more than that?
Yes.
19.
19 students that are currently quarantined, and 2 staff members? 2 staff members. Because of close contacts. It doesn't mean that they have it. All it means is that they were within 6 feet of the person that tested positive for 15 minutes or longer in a 24-hour period. It's just to be safe, and the fortunate thing that happened with this quarantine is the timing, because they only have to be out of school really for 4 days rather than 8 days, which would be the 2 weeks. Unfortunately for them, they have to spend their spring break in quarantine. But it's something that, this will not be the last one that we'll have to do this with. But I think that we're pretty lucky that we've made it this far in the, in all in-person instruction and only had one person on campus test positive. It's been helpful to have our nurse in the district office. She can take the time to do the contact tracing and things like that, so that's been helpful. Otherwise, she'd be doing that job and the health aide at Territorial, so that's really been working out. But with the success of the current instructional model, even with that one case, what we're recommending is that we continue with all in-person instruction with a distance learning option, which means basically we are requesting no changes to the current instructional model. And I reached out to you over late last week. The governor issued an executive order and changed the benchmarks. And so on this sheet, which is on the back of it, is the new benchmarks format that they want to use. Instead of 3, there's 4 different levels now for just 2 benchmarks where we were 3 before. They took out the hospitalizations, and we are just cases per 100,000 and percent positivity. And the 4 categories are high transmission, substantial transmission, moderate, and then low transmission. Right now, for 2 weeks ago, we were in substantial transmission, which is the second highest or the third from the bottom, for our cases per 100,000. And our percent positivity was in the moderate transmission, and so overall, we are in what's considered the substantial transmission cumulative total benchmark. I'm happy to say that the benchmarks come out tomorrow, and Wednesday. I anticipate that our cases will be in the moderate range, and that our percent positivity has a really good chance of being in the low transmission range.
And how's you have, or do you, I don't know, because usually you have like Yavapai County and stuff, do you not, how are we doing?
We're doing really well, and especially Chino Valley and Paulden are doing really well. The county as a whole is doing okay. I didn't include that. The numbers coming out of the county are, they're doing a lot of data correction, and so they don't really make sense. And so I didn't want to include that. This is much more accurate, I think, and a fair representation of what's going on in the county. So these are strictly just county numbers. But, and again, I'm knocking on wood, hopefully we'll continue. We've seen a steady decline in the number of cases and the percent positivity, and then hoping that continues. We are still wearing masks, that's by executive order. We'll still do the social distancing when we can, but when you have 35 kids in a 900 square foot classroom, you cannot social distance. We have the hand sanitizing stations in each in heavy locations and also in each classroom. So we're doing what we can to keep our kids safe. And so far it's been, I'd say, working fairly well. Our teachers are getting vaccinated on our second vaccination, and some of you are also getting your second vaccination on Thursday, as am I. And what my understanding is, once you are fully vaccinated, 2 weeks after your second vaccination, you're not subject to quarantine if there's a close contact. So that will be helpful for a good number of our staff members, that if there is a case, that they would not have to be quarantined if they were in a close contact. So.
Any questions for Mr. Shaw? So this does say it's an action item. Is there something we need to vote on?
It's not an action item.
It is an action item if you chose to act on it, but my recommendation is no action at this time.
Just leave in place what we did last month.
And we are going to quickly move on before we talk more about it. Item 9B, again, Mr. Scholl, in-person instructional model guidelines update.
This is just there's a few tweaks. The original model, which is what we're in now, was approved all the way back in July. and we've learned some things, so I wanted to make some modifications to reflect how we think things should be now. And so on the actual model, there is what's lined out is what used to be there, and what's bold is the new verbiage. And so the things to look at is under building procedures, I added and visitors when it comes to temperature check because I'm asking that we allow volunteers to be on campus beginning in 3/22 of 21. And so they would be temperature checked just like anyone else. They'd be wearing masks just like anyone else. And so volunteers are an important part of our how we operate. And we'd like to see limited volunteers. It doesn't mean anyone can come on campus, but volunteers that help us get things done, we want to have them on campus. We have volunteers that do some tutoring at some of the schools and things like that, that help out, help teachers out, and we want to be able to accommodate those that are willing to be on campus with our kids in a safe manner. We want them to be able to come on. And so that's part of it is volunteers allowed beginning 3/22. We had masks optional. We're going to change, obviously, face coverings required per governor's executive order. And it's the Department of Health Services that will tell us when we no longer are required to wear masks. That's not a decision that the board makes. That's not a decision that the administration makes. That's the governor's delegating that authority to the Arizona Department of Health Services. Limited assemblies, and we'll talk a little bit about that, what that means. Socially distanced when possible. We also, that is pretty much the extent of the significant changes. We already had follow AI guidelines and that kind of stuff. So when it comes to some of these assemblies, because of the, there's things like we're talking about graduation, and we're working with Findlay Toyota to hold graduation at the Findlay Toyota Center. And socially distanced, they're going to have assigned seats in groups of 10, which is what each graduate's going to get 10 tickets. They're going to sit together, and we are going to have to wear masks, but that's just part of, but when they cross the stage, they can take their mask off. We may be doing other things. We will be up on the stage. We may be doing elbows or fists or something else with graduates. We'll have to work that out and see what things are like. But we want to honor our graduates in a safe manner. We're also, we met today about the prom, and we'd like to hold the prom as well. Again, somewhere ideally outside, wearing masks, and have, in a safe manner, have these activities so that we can get to some semblance of normalcy as we, in a safe manner, as we approach, as the numbers are going down. Hopefully by May, maybe we don't have to wear masks, maybe we do, we don't know. But if things continue as is, we can have some of these activities, okay? And then also, normally we have one big assembly for awards. We'll do the seniors awards separately, which is normal, but we'll each do a grade level at the high school, things like that. And then at the middle school, we'll do grade levels. So we'll kind of break things up instead of big, large groups. We'll try to break it up and smaller chunks to be able to kind of spread out a little bit more in some of these venues.
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate everybody that's trying to make it. I've had a lot of people text me to ask me if we're gonna do graduation, and I'm like, I don't know. So I really think I know it's gonna be a lot of extra work for you guys, but I really think it's important that we get these kids to some little
And
normality.
we're gonna do the senior blast, that's gonna go out tomorrow, I think that Yvette said, that with that information about graduation, because we want people, our parents to be able to plan if they want grandma, grandpa to be there, if they can be there.
Right.
So, yeah.
Awesome, well, good job.
That's great. Again, this is an action item,
I have
so.
a question,
Okay,
please.
go ahead.
Regarding face coverings, are accommodations being made for students who are asthmatic or like can't wear a mask if doctors?
Well, masks, it doesn't have to be a cloth face mask. Some people in the room are wearing shields, face shields, And so face shields were specifically allowed in the executive order. And so it's face coverings in general, which include masks or shields, is what we allow. I think we have only one person, it's a staff member, that had a doctor's note saying they couldn't wear either. And we're making those accommodations. But otherwise, if people can't wear masks, typically shields seem to be okay for most everyone else.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Anything else? Any of you? Then I would request a motion to approve the revised in-person instructional model guidelines.
I'll move we approve your revised in-person instructional model guidelines, please.
Second, please.
Second?
Any discussion or questions before we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 7A, I'm sorry, 12A, revised policy
Larry, you wanna talk a
GCCG.
little bit about this?
Larry.
Thank you, Madam President. So this is the policy I was referring to earlier. I believe this is our leave bank policy that we wanted to revise. A lot of us felt that in its current state, the leave bank is kind of useless. And I don't think a lot of people use it the way it's set. And so we decided that we really needed to fix it or get rid of it. So we decided to try to fix it and make it so it's something that our staff can take advantage of to help people out who, for those individuals that want to invest into the lead bank. And so I know Superintendent Scholl was part of that crew, found some areas that had some really good ideas. And so we feel that this is going to help make this, the lead bank, something that our employees can utilize. It will involve them donating leave into the bank at the beginning of the year, kind of an open enrollment type model where you have to commit, depending on if you're, I believe year one you cannot be eligible because this is based on the Family Medical Leave Act and you're not eligible for FMLA on your first year, but 2 to 5 years it would be one of your days per year, and then anything over that would be 2 days. It's the value of the individual's leave that goes into the bank, so it's not just the hours, it's a monetary value that goes in there. And then if employees are eligible for Family Medical Leave Act emergencies or whatnot, something that qualifies with that, or maternal or paternal leave, they can submit. We'll make a kind of a subcommittee that will look at these applications to determine if they've met the requirements, and then it would be a matching, kind of a, it would be a match. So if you needed a week and you had a week, you would put in, you'd put in half of that, the bank would match the other half, and it would go up to, I believe, 12 weeks is the maximum that you can get on FMLA. So if you had 6 weeks and you needed those 12, you would put in 6, the bank would put in 6, and that way you'd be covered. However, if you needed 12 and you only had 2, then you're only getting your 2 plus the matching 2. So this is something that we would hope would encourage some of our staff to save their leave and then utilize the bank. So if they do hit situations, just as Superintendent Scholl did last year, that they would be able to have that extra leave at their disposal. As it currently sits now, the only time you're eligible to even look at the leave bank is if you're completely depleted. With this case, you wouldn't be. You could still retain some. So if you had one instance and then shortly after had another one, you could still have some leave left over to take advantage of that. So we feel that this is kind of a step in the right direction. We know there may be some tweaks once we get rolling with this to fine tune it, if you will, but I believe it's a step in the right direction to make this something usable. Again, staff would have to put in up front. If they don't put in, they're not eligible. It's not something you can just jump right into later on and then take advantage of. So you kind of have to commit to it in the beginning, kind of in that early open enrollment, and that leave would just come out right out of your initial yearly allocation, but either the 1 day or 2 days. If the bank gets too high, I know there's verbiage in there that maybe those 5-year plus employees may only have to put 1 in. If it gets too low, that committee can request all participants to add some more in if that leave bank gets too low, and then that would become a choice whether you want to commit more of your leave into the bank to stay in the bank for the year, or if you just kind of, you don't, and then you're kind of opting yourself out for the remainder of that year. So, good leave.
So,
Yeah, Larry, this is I say it gently, fairly complex program. Do we have a simple fact sheet that we hand to all the employees so they understand the opportunities as well as the rules for participation?
I don't believe we have anything. I mean, I think there were a lot of people that weren't even aware, as it stands now, that there was a leave bank, or how.
Well, yeah, and, you know, I think we all took time to read this.
Yes.
But I would certainly hope if you don't, that some, you know, one-page fact sheet of,
Yeah.
you know, what it takes, what benefits are, at least to get people interested, might get more participation.
I would imagine in our all-staff orientation at the beginning of the year, we would include that in some
Yeah,
capacity.
but that's one of a whole day's full of stuff.
Yeah, it's true.
We had talked about including it, so we go out to, Shelley, our Human Resources Coordinator, and I go out to the schools to go over the open enrollment for health insurance. And that would be the time that we would likely do this as well, to give that information out while we have the staff focusing on health insurance activities. Say, to let them know what this new, you know, that's the time that they would basically opt in. It has to be before July 1,
Right.
whether they opt in or not at that time, so.
John, all I'm suggesting
Yep.
is just like a one-page
Yep.
handout that's given to the staff, so as soon as they're done with the meeting, they can go back and look at it, rather than trying to remember the details of it.
Yep, and we can get that done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Penny,
so, yeah, I had a couple questions. So, on the first page, you have, in the event of a member declines to contribute, then they would lose their membership. So what if they don't have any days left to contribute?
Too bad.
Well, in the beginning, that's why this would be done more toward when everybody earns their leave. So you kind of, you know, it's payday, leave payday. So you need to commit, basically, when you have leave, to get into this.
And everyone gets their leave. For example, teachers get 8 hours a month, so they would get 80 hours of leave. That's all given to them at the beginning of the year. So they would have to opt in, and then one day, which for them would be 9.5 hours, would come out of their leave allocation when they have 80 in there. So they have leave when they decide to, at a minimum, they have 80 when they decide whether they want to opt in or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was referring to the part where it says if the balance falls below $10,000.
Then if they don't have leave, then they're just out until the next open enrollment
Then they
period.
would be out.
Yeah, if they were out by that point.
And then secondly, 24 consecutive days, is that consecutive work days or every day of the week?
That's 24 days is and actually it's 240, it's 24 days, or the equivalent hours, is what FMLA is the maximum period of time for Family Medical Leave Act.
Work days.
It's 48
That's what I was
days.
wondering. Okay.
48 days. So they can, somebody can match up to 24 days. They put in 24, they get 24 for the 48, which is the 6 weeks, or 12 weeks, 12 weeks.
Work days,
Okay.
Yeah, work days.
not calendar days.
And if there's holidays in there, you don't count the holidays, that kind of stuff.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Questions?
this is just a first reading, so we will readdress this at a later board meeting to vote.
Okay, Larry,
Thank you, Larry.
this for you.
All right, item 12B, policy GCKA, telecommuting, Mr. Schultz.
This is another first reading, so there will be no action possible on it. It'll come back at the April board meeting. But with everything that's happened over the last year, we felt it was appropriate to include some telecommuting guidelines that we can share with staff if we ever get in a similar situation in the future. This is the standard ASBA policy on telecommuting.
Any questions?
Good idea.
Again, first reading. We do have executive session tonight, so we do need to have a motion made to go into executive session.
So move.
I'll make a motion to go to executive session.
Well, who would like to be first and who would like to be second?
I'll second Annie's then. Whatever.
So as we've been doing all night, any discussion or questions, even though we can't answer any on the executive session yet?
And like a 10-minute break, so that
Please.
people can use the facilities if needed. And then also our cameraman can kind of clear out his equipment.
Sounds good. All in favor?
Aye.
Are we staying here?
Yeah, we'll do it in here.